Ahoy! And welcome to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. The Boating Hour brings you the latest and greatest essential information about everything that sails, floats, or motors upon the high seas of Southern California. From landlubbers to old salts, there'll be something for everyone. So climb aboard and get ready to sail with Captain Rick.
Ahoy out there, and welcome to the Boating Hour. I'm Captain Rick, and I want to thank you for joining us here on AM 870. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m., and please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com. And now on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks to our sponsors for our show today. For a healthy gut, the best probiotic on the market, Livia One Probiotics, natural, organic, and allergen-free. And Raycom radios, reliable two-way radios throughout Southern California. Whether at land or sea, Raycom radios can help you with your event. And today, we have in-studio guest that's come all the way from L.A. Long Beach Sector Base in the Coast Guard, Lieutenant J.G. Ozwecki. Thanks for joining us back.
Yes. Thank you for having me, Captain Rick. I appreciate it.
I didn't let you get a word in edgewise last week, so I wanted to have you back. That was so exciting to have the Lieutenant Commander. I didn't know there was a legal going on in the Coast Guard, but boy, that was an exciting guest. And
great stuff. And he's a great advocate for the Coast Guard law program. So he shared a lot of information with me, and hopefully you have some listeners that get a lot out of that interview.
I hope so. I hope I'm inspiring people to take a look, especially young kids if they're listening. Radio has made a big comeback. There's a lot of people that listen, and I hope people are excited to go to, whether it's an event, to one of the booths, the Coast Guard, or the adults to come out to the Coast Guard Auxiliary, the civilian volunteers that assist the Coast Guard. So I hope I'm inspiring a few people to come out. It's so easy. Just go Coast Guard, find a recruiter. They're all over the place. So I hope I'm inspiring a little bit. Let's talk about your career. So you really helped me last year. Now let's talk a little bit about last year. The Coast Guard was the featured branch. They had such a good footprint.
Yes.
It was so exciting. You set up all kinds of great guests. I had the commanders, Commander Sharkey. I had now Master Chief. So I had Master Chief Chastain.
Chastain.
Okay,
Chastain.
And
She's a legend.
Yeah, and retired. I guess he was Manning. I'm a little confused because the base out there. So Captain Manning was the base commander.
Captain Manning was the sector commander.
Okay, sector. Explain the difference. There's sector and there's the base and there's Coast Guard. I've even seen different facility vessels out there from Harbor Patrol. Explain what the base is, because there's so many different entities. I get confused as to what their jobs are, what they do, and what the base itself is.
So Commander Sharkey recently retired. She was the base commanding officer for LALB.
A career coastie, right?
Career coastie.
Yeah.
I think she retired with 38 years of service.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and she was great. She was awesome. She was a huge part of last year's Torrance Armed Forces Day Planning Meeting Committee. Captain Manning was the sector commander, and he recently retired as well with over 30 years of service. And
he's with the Port Authority now.
That is correct. In Long Beach, that is correct. Yeah,
so what's the difference between sector and the base? So base commander and and Captain Manning being the sector. What is sector? What is the base?
So the base basically has different support units, his wall, things like that. Sector, we have additional units. A lot of the cutters are under the sector. You have the command center, you have the prevention units, and you also have logistics as well. So same location,
right?
But two different entities.
And I see Harbor Patrol in there. I see different local vessels. Are they just docking, or do they run command centers there as well?
We do have lifeguards in the area, and they occupy that space as well. So it's just easy entry and exit to respond to incidents as well.
It's exciting to be down there. So I take every opportunity to try to go down there. Let's talk about watch standard. In the Coast Guard Auxiliary,
absolutely.
We have a lot of culinary that's there.
Absolutely.
And assisting when I guess that's the first place they draw when they need crew and staff on the cutters for patrols or for response. So a lot of Coast Guard auxiliarists are out there in the galleys, even the galleys on the ship. But now watch standard. So I'm thinking of going through that program, manning all the emergency radios. And that was your position you started telling me last week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge responsibility, and we thank our auxiliary for taking on that task and that role because it's not easy. Prior to doing what I'm doing now, which is a marine inspector, I was an operations specialist. So I spent 3.5 years in Miami at the command center there. And,
wow.
Saw a lot of things.
What does that entail? I mean, you're monitoring all the emergency channels.
Yeah, so you're monitoring Channel 16. You're taking on search and rescue calls. Lost boaters. Any minute things that happen on the water, you're going to be the first point of contact.
Are you monitoring ham radio and 911 cell calls and when you're training exercises? Are you monitoring all that?
All of it. So there's a lot going on for one person. So to take on that role is a huge responsibility. And areas like LALB, Miami, San Francisco, these are not the quietest ports. So
interesting.
You're taking on a lot of information at once. So you have to be extremely organized. You have to work well under pressure. And you have to know the AOR. You have to know the area responsibility quite well as well.
It must be draw some similarities between being an air traffic controller.
Absolutely. I would say that's the greatest comparison, but on the water. But when emergencies do happen, you have to be quick and responsive because, that boater, that person out there might have only a few seconds before something happens. So first thing you want to do is you want to take that person's position, make sure you know where they're at so you can send assets to that area at a minimum.
Now that you mention that, my guests next week are Coast Guard auxiliarists. So I've got Jensen Crawford coming on. I'm scheduling Lori and Al Verdi. Al Verdi in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. He was our district commander, and he runs a boat, and they do patrols. They were first to scene after about a minute of down in Long Beach of a pleasure craft. It might have been a fishing craft. They're going to talk about it. And they crashed up. They lost power, crashed up against the rocks. They were probably another minute away from absolute disaster. So the auxiliary got the highest award in the parade. They featured the banner and the highest award you can get in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, the National Award for a search and rescue. And they were so well trained. They're going to come talk about it. They did a bunch of things at once. So they were able to stop the boat from crashing on the rocks. They were able to rescue everybody. And at the same time, call in for help to the Coast Guard, which came out within a couple of minutes. I'm not sure exactly. They're going to tell the whole story. But it's such a prestigious honor. And they paraded the vessel in the parade.
Nice.
So, yeah, that was – and Al Verdi was part of the auxiliary last year, too, when the Coast Guard was a featured branch. But we're going to talk all about that and watch standard. We're going to have one of our Coast Guard auxiliarists is volunteering. He went through a program. He said he thought he knew a lot about radios. A ham radio man, a VHF radio, grew up fixing radios. He said he went through the program, the training, first the auxiliarist and then the Coast Guard. And then he now volunteers down at Watch Standard at L.A. Long Beach. You see Alec Milstein down there. So actually, last year, you may remember him. He was the gentleman from the auxiliarist that sang the national anthem at the concert on Friday night.
Oh, beautiful voice.
Yeah, that was Alec, and none of us knew he sang.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, and he's such a distinguished gentleman, and he's was our division commander for the auxiliary, and he served, and when you look at him, you think he's a football or basketball player, and he came out there and just knocked it out of the park.
There you go.
Yeah, we were also, and apparently he had hurt his back moving a piano, and he was absolutely amazing. So, we found out something about one of our peers It really is wonderful, the talent. So that's what we do. Well, let's talk. We talked about last week. We didn't get into it with your career. How did you get in the Coast Guard? What inspired you? How did you find out about it? Did you grow up around the water? And then let's talk about your initial training and what got you to become I guess you're on the career path right now.
Absolutely. I thank you for asking. So the way I got into Coast Guard was very, I would say, unique. I was born in Dallas, Texas, so didn't grow up around a lot of water.
Wait a second. Dallas, Texas?
Dallas,
and you're not
Texas.
talking real slow? You didn't come in here with the cowboy hat? So
not me. So my parents are from Nigeria.
Okay.
So they stressed education and importance on, public speaking and things like that. So I grew up in a very strict household. So it was just different, So I grew up in Texas, but I had a lot of my Nigerian values growing up. So it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But the way I found the Coast Guard, it was funny. Finished college. I was working at a club. I was a bouncer for like 2 years.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So I can go down that rabbit hole, but, another story for another time. And I was just kind of, figuring out what I wanted to do next. And I was looking at different options. I was going to school in El Paso, Texas. And big thing out there is Border Patrol. And as I looked into it, stumbled upon a Coast Guard website. Googled the Coast Guard, had no clue about it, like most people from probably Texas in that area at the time didn't as well, right?
Well, you guys don't, quite have the Pacific Ocean like we do here. But you got a lot of bodies of water. You got some lakes and rivers.
Correct. Yep, absolutely. But yeah, I Googled the nearest Coast Guard recruiting station near me. It was like half a mile from my house. I had no clue.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So I went, just asked the recruiter some questions, and next thing you know, I'm taking an ASVAB test and doing all these different things. Funny part is I didn't know how to swim.
Oh, no kidding. Where does go swimmer? Okay.
So I went to my local YMCA and started a swim class at 26.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
So you can imagine the students that were there were not my age.
Okay.
So I was the only adult, and it was very humbling. As you can imagine, I remember very vividly the first day we're doing laps, and it took me forever to get just down, 25 yards, and I've got 6-year-olds just smoking me, going, up and down, back and forth, and the coach is working with me, and I just stuck with it. I took my time, and I had some time before I went to boot camp.
Where did you go to boot camp? Is it the same place for everybody?
Yep.
Where
it
is
was
boot
at
camp?
the time, 2013. It was Cape May, New Jersey. New Jersey. Yeah. So got a good foundation in swimming. Wasn't the best, but I was enough to pass the swimming test in boot camp. Went to boot camp early 2013. Finished, and my first tour after boot camp was in Seattle, Washington, which was another place that was extremely foreign to me. Right. Never been on the water. Never been on the high seas. And I've probably never been to the Northwest at all.
Oh,
so,
no kidding.
Yeah, I took that drive over, 20 plus hours, showed up first day, eager beaver, ready to get to work. And they said, all right, go ahead and change out. And they handed me a paintbrush. And next thing you know, I'm painting the side of this 378-foot ship.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So
did you paint the whole thing?
Not by myself. Luckily, I had a team because I probably wasn't the best painter. But I spent a year there, and I learned so much in such a short amount of time. I went from having no maritime knowledge at all to, steering this huge boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I got to see some law enforcement cases. I got to hang out with some Airedales, see some helicopters. And so I kind of got to see different rates and different jobs. And I was fortunate enough to shadow some operations specialists in CIC. I thought it was pretty cool. It was a secret space, working with radios. They were handling secret mission stuff. And so, after that, I left and went to training in Petaluma, California for a few months and finished that training. I became an operations specialist. From there, I went to Miami, and that's kind of where I really cut my teeth and kind of had, that deer in the headlights look, because it's a different Coast Guard when you get to high tempo areas like here in Miami. So spent 3.5 years there and saw a myriad of cases, search and rescue, drugs. I saw, personnel transfers. I just saw pretty much about everything. And then once I finished there, I was stationed in Alameda, California on a national security cutter, which was a totally different ball game as well. So I got to sail all the way to Pacific, all the way down to the equator, went all the way up to Alaska. Saw everything. Saw everything. It was just a great experience. And the best part about it is that I made lifelong friends doing this. Everywhere I went, I've made friends that I can call today, and we start laughing and having these discussions about, just times, that we spent on the high seas doing incredible stuff that not a lot of people get to do. So I don't take that experience for granted.
Yeah, it's amazing about the Coast Guard. This is a very familiar story. I know a lot of people that were in some of the other branches. They treasure their experience, but they're glad to get out. The Coasties are a little bit different. They have such valuable experience. Of course, we always mention how great the food is. But one thing I hear at the booths, the auxiliaries, we do some boater safety. We're in the marinas, sometimes at the launch ramps, doing vessel exams. Sometimes we're next to your booth, so at the Armed Forces Parade. And I heard a lot of people at the various, from Fleet Week to Armed Forces Parade, a couple other events. You hear the parents and sometimes the young kids. And one of the comments I hear a lot is they shake their head when they see the Coasties. And they're young, and there are a lot of men and women, and they hear stories. They say there's hope. They say this is really nice to come here today. I've heard this many times. I've got hope that with all the craziness going on and the stuff we see on television, all the terrible things going on in our colleges, they say, I think we're okay. They come out and they see the Coasties, and at the Armed Forces Parade, all the different branches. And one of the comments I've gotten many, many times is they smile and say, we're going to be all right. And it's really nice to see that because, the Coast Guard is 42% women now. It's a lot of very successful women, commanders on from commanders to technical. One thing I've never understood, I had a tour on several different cutters, and I think it would take me a lifetime to understand, especially the captains of the ships, and their different levels, different. Their positions are all different, but it would take me a lifetime to understand how to operate. They're so technical. How does someone get on a ship in a very relatively short period of time, sometimes a year or two, and all of a sudden they now know how to operate one of these complex, highly technical, it's almost like your cockpit in those cutters looks like a science fiction spaceship.
I will tell you it's on-the-job training, hands down. And I'm saying that as someone who's a testament of it. You get on board, and you might not have any experience in what you're doing, and you will figure it out. You will find a way. One thing we do in the Coast Guard is we train constantly. Any service does, right? But we train constantly for not necessarily hypothetical situations, but anything that could occur, right? Semper paratus, always ready.
Always ready.
There you go. And so I would say from what I've seen, we have some of the best training programs. I've compared to any service. But literally, you can get on board and have no experience or no knowledge in anything, and you'll figure it out relatively quickly because we just have some of the best people. Coast Guard is very small, right? Very, very small. So we have to train our own, and we have to do a great job. And
there's an image of sailors and people that work around the marine industry that when a disaster happens or you get called out, you take care of your job, you do what you have to do, whether it's life-saving or routine, and then you come back and just hang out. But you guys are training round the clock.
Constantly.
And that's what's so amazing. So it's really a 24/7 job.
Absolutely. And you got to keep it fresh and you got to keep it fun. That's the secret.
Yeah, and I've also noticed, on base, and when you see Coasties, they're also good looking, so athletic, but they're always smiling. They really
could be the food.
It's got to be the food.
Got to be the galley.
It's got to be the galley, the Terrell Horn Gallery, God, that's so amazing. What's one of the most exciting things that you've done that you can tell us about in your career and being in the Coast Guard? And what do you plan to do in the future? Are you going to stay in, and are we going to see you as a commander?
Well, time will tell. I definitely plan on staying for 20 years, maybe beyond. I would say I just hit my 10-year mark, or over my 10-year mark.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
I still remember my first day joining, and it feels like it's just been, it's happened so fast. So for me, I'm currently a Marine inspector. I don't have any background in Marine inspections.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
So again, our training programs are the best. I'm leaving with knowledge that even when I retire, I'm going to use once I leave this service. As far as moving forward, I can't stress this enough. Recruiting numbers are down, but like I said, we're a small service and we take care of our own. So we have, a few different recruiting initiatives. You've heard from Lieutenant Commander James Doherty about our, our law initiatives. I believe you had Mr. Josh Rydell on.
He was a great guest.
Prior recruiter, and I would say he's one of the best at advocating this type of stuff.
I got in when I had him on. I went out to his event May 4th. That was the Upland, the new recruiting station, and I tell you, it really had an impact. They had a wonderful thing, and there was the food tent. There was one of the patrol vessels, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of people came out, and actually, I had met a young lady that had been bouncing around after high school, didn't like any jobs that she got, and took some photos of different people. And she went up to a recruiter and signed up. And
there you go.
And I had tears in my eyes.
There you go.
They talked about all the different things she didn't understand about the Coast Guard, but it was great to see it happen, to see her eyes light up.
In real time, right?
Yeah, it was real time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had invites, so they came there. They were planned. They had their recruiters. So I'd like to see more of that, and I think that's what's going to save this country. But what does the Coast Guard have? Well, what's the ideal number? Is it about 30,000, or is it?
I believe, at last I checked, we're about a little over 40,000. Still less than NYPD, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, we're a small branch. I can tell you, in my over 10 years of service, I've served multiple times with people. In this past decade. So there's people that I've served with when I was E3 that I still serve with now to this day, because we bounce all around the country. But, we stay in touch. And so it's not uncommon to see someone you worked with, in the past.
It's a wonderful branch, and I hope I'm, by having some great exposure, giving the Coast Guard some wonderful exposure. I think I'd like to, and I hope I'm having this effect, inspiring some youngsters to. I call them youngsters now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I hope I'm inspiring them to look into the Coast Guard, and I know that I've talked to a few people that have listened to the show that have joined the auxiliary. So
absolutely.
I'm excited.
There's several different avenues. I would say the biggest one we have right now is we're offering a pathways to citizenship as well. So,
no kidding. Okay.
Absolutely. So it's a recruiting initiative where we're taking legal green card holders, right?
You getting student visas and people in colleges?
You have to have you have to have a current upstanding green card.
Got it.
And if you have that and you want to enlist in the Coast Guard, what we would do, you would go through the process just like anybody else enlisting. But after your 8 weeks, after you finish boot camp, you would become a naturalized citizenship, or you get your naturalized citizenship. So you do your 8 weeks of boot camp, and you kind of expedite your naturalization. So that's a fairly new program that not a lot of people know about, that we've kind of been pushing in different areas. So I just want to make sure the SoCal area gets that information as well.
That's absolutely a wonderful thing, and I'll make sure I promote that on the show. Well, this is like the 10 years in your career. This show went so fast. I barely scratched the surface, and I hope you can come. I can invite you back on the show. I hope you're around. I hope I'm dealing with you the next time the Coast Guard is the featured branch in the Armed Forces Parade.
Who knows?
Because that is a wonderful event, and we really made a mark last year, and this year was wonderful as well. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed our show. As always, we're so very fortunate to have such wonderful and exciting guests. And I want to thank our in-studio guest today, Lieutenant J.G. Ozwecki. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Appreciate you for having me.
Remember, let's not forget the Coasties, protecting our waters, America's lifesavers and guardians of the sea. Coming up next week, the highest award you can get in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. It's a life-saving effort, and they got a national award, so that's fantastic. Thanks to our sponsors for the show today. For a Healthy Gut, Livia One and Raycom Radios, reliable two-way radios throughout Southern California without drop zones and dead batteries. Don't forget to visit us on the web, theboatinghour.com, and now on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, The Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Keep your emails coming. This is Captain Rick saying ahoy and farewell.